Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. I see people are starting to trickle in. I'm super excited to be doing this workshop with Adobe. I hope you guys like what I have in store for you today. We're going to be talking about how to plan videos to make it easier in editing. So yeah, I'm going to wait a few more minutes to give everyone the chance to get settled in and to join. But before we start, just a few housekeeping things. There is a chat pod, and if I can ask you guys to change your chat pod settings to all panelists and attendees, that way everyone can see what you're typing into the chat. I also want to let you know that we have the Adobe team in the chat pod as well, and they'll be answering questions as we go along. Hi, hello from, okay, hello. What time is it in the UK right now? We also have a Q&A at the very end of the session, so feel free to put any questions that you have in the Q&A pod. Hello, hi everyone. So yeah, where are you guys from? I'm very curious. Let me know in the chat pod where you're from and also what time it is over there. It's 9 a.m. here in Sydney. It's not that cold today. It was colder yesterday. Oh, wow. Hi, North Carolina, 7 p.m. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Hong Kong. Hi. Hong Kong, it's 7 a.m. right now, 2 a.m. Oh, gosh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope that covers everything. It's so good to see you all join. It's so exciting. Yeah, we'll give it a few more minutes. New York City. Hi, 7 p.m. Okay. So hello, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Gosh, I see some of you are like joining and it's nighttime or like past midnight. Hello, it's quite early in Hong Kong right now, isn't it? Okay, so I think you know what, I think we will get started now. Hello to people who have just joined. So I am going to share my screen now. Just give me a second. Okay. Can you all see my screen? Okay, great. So in today's session, we're going to be talking about pre-production pro. So how I plan videos for seamless editing. So before we start, I just want to give a really quick intro on who I am. So I'm Janice. I'm a Sydney-based food and travel YouTuber. I'm also on other platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and I also have a blog, but my main platform is video content on YouTube. So I've always liked creating videos. My very first videos on YouTube were back in 2013, and they were skits. They were of vlogs of family holidays and birthdays, etc. And it was during this time that I sort of learned the basics of how to edit. Unlike some other video creators on YouTube, I never really had formal training or been to film school. I actually studied finance and law in university, which is very different to videography. So I started working in banking right after I graduated, but I couldn't stop thinking about the idea of creating on YouTube. And for the longest time, I kind of let the fear of doing something unconventional stop me from doing it. Until 2019, when I said enough was enough, and I decided to take that leap and start my food and travel channel on YouTube. So that was, 2019, nearly over 2 years ago. So I have been making weekly content since, and now in 2021, it's been a crazy 2 years with over 160 videos, 9 cities that I visited in just 2019. In 2020, I visited none, and a whole bunch of other really cool things that would have never happened if it weren't for these videos and my YouTube channel. So enough about me. Here is what we're going to be doing today. So in today's session, I'm going to show you my process of video creation from idea to filming to editing, and how I plan my videos so that it's easier during editing. And by the end of today's workshop, you should begin to understand how to approach your video making situation by using my process and systems just as a guide. So first, we'll go over research and planning. So essentially how to find video ideas and how to plan your videos out. Then we'll go over the filming process, where I'm going to be talking about the importance of having a shot list. And I'll also go over the gear that I use and how it helps me stay organized for editing. Then I will tie everything together with a short demo in Premiere Pro. And then finally, at the end, we'll have a Q&A and I'll answer any questions that you might have. So feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A pod. So without further ado, let's get started with the first section, research and planning. So I'm going to go over how I come up with video ideas and how I plan my filming to make it go as efficiently and as smooth as possible. So it's really important to film with intention, because if you're just mindlessly filming everything, you're going to be going through so much footage, and editing is just going to be a pain and it's just going to be a headache. So before you can start thinking about how to film with intention, you need to know what to film, and this is your video idea. So if you're creating personal videos, then this part will be a lot easier. But if you're creating videos with the desire to share it with the rest of the world, you still can create whatever you want, but there has to be a thought process behind it. There needs to be a balance of what you enjoy creating and what people will want to watch. And this involves 3 components. So something that you want to create, so that's your creative desire. Something that people would be interested in watching, and then something that is easily discoverable online. And you can sort of figure this out using market research and also keyword research. So as some of you may know, I mostly make food and travel content on my channel because that's the area that I'm most interested in. But before I even start creating any video, like before I even pick up the camera, I usually brainstorm ideas and find evidence that people are interested in it and find associated search terms with that idea. So the simplest way is to simply use Google and YouTube to search for a video idea that you want to create and see what's currently available. So what I find really helpful is using keyword tools. Now, there are paid and free versions online. And then once you use that tool, you figure out what people are looking for and how much existing content there is. So whenever I travel to a new city or a new country, I firstly research places that I want to visit. And then I use these video ideas to figure out potential titles for my video. This means that before I even go out to film my video, I already have an idea of what title I'm going to give it, which helps direct focus on what shots I'm going to need. So for example, when I went to Singapore, I knew that I wanted to film a video on the Changi airport. And so I researched what people are typically looking for to see if I can sort of craft a video around it. So the absolute best keywords are the ones that's highly searched, so really high in volume, but also very low competition. And when you find one, it's like you've hit jackpot because they're few and far between. But if you have a look at my Singapore example, so I just put like Changi airport in, the volume it's okay, but the competition is low. And then they also give you some other suggested keywords like Singapore, which is, really, really high in volume, but really, really high competition. And you want to have a mixture of, different types of keywords that are both high in volume, but high competition, or slightly lower in volume, but also lower in competition. And then, for example, for my Japan video, I stayed at a capsule hotel in Japan, and my research process was exactly the same. So this is just really helpful to flesh out my video idea, to figure out my title, which helps me come up with a shot list. And I'll go into that in just a bit. So yeah, my research sort of led me to my YouTube titles. I don't know if you've noticed, but usually my titles are, they're quite long. So once I have done this, and once I know what my video idea is going to be, what my title is going to be, then it's the next part of the research and planning. So because I make food and travel videos, this is the part where I research restaurants that I'll go to or locations that I'll feature. So firstly, what I need to do in my planning process is I need to find filming locations. So currently my videos are mainly based in Sydney, so researching suitable places isn't too hard because I already have a long list of places that I really like. But when I'm filming overseas, I'm sort of reliant on using Google or online forums. And sometimes I get really good recommendations from my subscribers and from my viewers as well. And that's kind of how I find these filming locations. And then afterwards, what I do is I need to structure. So once I have an idea of, where I want to film and what I want to film, I need to plan out my film structure to make my filming as simple as possible. So for example, this is, as simple as going on Google Maps and creating the best route to hit up each place. It's making sure that every place is open at the date and time that you want to visit, because the last thing you want is to go to a location and then realize that, it's closed. And it's happened to me before when I went to Tokyo and I wanted to visit a shrine, and I didn't realize that they closed at sunset, and sunset changes depending on what time of year it is. And so finding film locations, structuring your video, and then the next part, it's reaching out. So because I film at a lot of locations that are not at home, and I film at other people's establishments, I need to make sure that I reach out to businesses before I visit. And typically this is via either email or Instagram DMs. And depending on what your video idea is, it may be museums or galleries or, different shops, or if you're not going to feature any locations, you might not need to do that at all. And so once I sort of reach out and reach out to them via email or DMs, it's just easier to plan, because they sort of sometimes help out a little bit with your shoot as well, and sometimes they let me see a little bit of the behind the scenes, which adds a bit more of a story to the video. But yeah, I always try to make sure I reach out before going to a restaurant. And then the fourth part of my research and planning is to figure out alternatives. So in your planning, you always have to have alternatives as contingency in case things don't go your way for whatever reason. So for example, if they don't allow you to film, or if there's bad weather and your shoot is outdoors, or there's been a handful of times where I've been to a restaurant and their food just wasn't as good as I remembered it, and so I had to scrap the location from my video feature. So Kathy, you asked, do I have a location filming contract for business and locations to read and sign for legal reasons? So at the moment, no, only because it's mostly sort of filming for YouTube, and usually if they're not comfortable with me filming, then I just don't film. And the way that I try to also place the camera is I try to just place it on me with like a wall behind me. And usually they're okay with that. And if there are any establishments or restaurants that are not comfortable with me filming, they usually let me know before I even go there. So yeah. So that's pretty much all the research and planning that I do for my videos. You would tweak this depending on what the nature of your video is. And that's essentially the foundation work that lets me get started on creating a shot list, which literally is just a list of shots that I need to make the video that I want. So what I do is I typically write down all the shots that I need as a checklist on my phone, and then I literally tick it off as I go. And it keeps me on track, and it lets me know whether I have all the footage that I need, because the worst thing is to sit down and to start your edit and realize that you're missing footage. So these are like a really sort of a summary of kind of the shots that I use to build my story. So A-roll is essentially the footage that creates the skeleton of my video and the foundation of my story. So for example, many of my videos are of me visiting restaurants and showcasing the food at that restaurant. And essentially all I would do is sit in front of the camera and eat. But if the entire video is just that, it's going to be very, very flat, which is why we also have B-roll. So B-roll is like the seasoning. It gives your video flavor, emotion. It helps support your main footage, and it gives the viewer a sense of the atmosphere as well. And then there are also sort of other clips, and these are like unplanned. And I film it on the day because I feel like this footage might help improve my video. And so this is just a very quick example of the list of shots that I typically have on my phone, and I just sort of tick it off as I go. So typically it's organized by location and, which is my video structure. And then each part has either A-roll or B-roll. So for example, in all my videos, I always have a talking head intro where I talk about the restaurant I'm about to visit, and then I talk about the premise of my video as well. And in addition to that, every single time I visit a restaurant, I make sure that I get a wide shot of the restaurant so people can see what it looks like from the outside. I get a point of view of me walking into the restaurant. I get an interior shot of the restaurant, and then I also get shots of like the menu, the table setup. And I always make sure that I have the right intro montage shot. So based on my research and planning, I already have an idea of what my video title is going to be. So clips that go into my intro montage will largely relate to the title of my video. And that's something that I always have with me when I'm filming. Otherwise, like, I know that I'm going to forget something, and I just tick it off as I go. Okay. So, M. Jones, I started my research yesterday for locations. Nice, I'm glad to hear. Okay, so then I want to talk quickly about my gear list. So my camera gear is, it's always the same for almost all my video types. And when I started making videos, I didn't have a checklist that I would tick off before I left to shoot. And I have to say, there are times when I have left the house to go film, and then I realized like I forgot to bring a memory card, and I had to go buy one like on the spot. So now I also make sure that everything is charged the day before, and right before I leave the door, I actually have a checklist where I take my camera, I turn it on, I make sure that I have my memory card and I have my battery before putting it back in my bag and then checking that item off. So this is the gear that I currently use. Because most of my videos consist of food and I'm nearly always filming alone, I just find it much easier to film with two cameras. So one for the food close up and then one like fixed on my face. So I use a wireless lav mic whenever I film, because I just find that this works well, even if I'm at really noisy restaurants and they have like really loud music playing in the background. I always bring my tripod and Gorilla Pod with me because it lets me set up my camera in any situation. I filmed a lot with my tripod when I was overseas as well. They're like your best friend when you are filming alone. Yeah, I use my tripod a lot when I was traveling, especially when I want to set up shot that there's nothing nearby to kind of curl my Gorilla Pod around. So yeah, this is the gear that I typically bring out with me. And I know that it seems like a lot, but honestly, if you're just starting out, you don't actually need all of this. When I first started vlogging, I didn't have a mic, I didn't have a camera. I used my iPhone 6 and that was all I used to vlog. So please don't feel like you can't start because you don't have the right camera or the right audio equipment. I think the best camera is the one that you have and the one that you know how to use. And nowadays, the camera on your phone are of such high quality. There's no reason why you can't use it to make your video. So, do I use the lav and shotgun together? I use the lav just for me, like when I talk, but then with the shotgun, if if I am, say, interviewing someone like the restaurant owner and they want to talk about their food, it's just, for me, it's easier for me to like use shotgun. Or if I have other people with me, it's just easier to use my shotgun mic and just film them like that instead of giving them the mic. Did I use a G7X? I did use that before. And I'm happy to take your camera questions a little bit later. I actually like them both, but we can head and we can chat later about cameras. Okay, so all right, we are now going to jump into the demo. So this is the part where, you know, we jump into Premiere Pro and I'll give you a quick demo on how I leverage, or how you can leverage the planning that you've done into the edit. There are three main things that I want to run through. So number one, how I organize footage. Number two, how I create my video intro. And number three, how I lay down a rough storyline structure. Now, the video that I'm about to show you for my demo is one about late night eats here in Sydney. So let's get right into it. Let me just exit full screen. Okay. So every single time I am done with a shoot, the first thing that I do is to save my clips into my external hard drive. And the way that I organize my external hard drive, it's actually very, very simple. I organize all my clips by year. So this is a relatively new one, but hence why it's only 2021. And then I organize it by month, and then day, and then camera. And so that's where I drag all the clips in so that I kind of know straight away, you know, whichever video I'm looking to edit, I can just refer to the date. And then once I'm ready to edit, I would jump into Premiere Pro. And I've already created a project in preparation for this workshop. And I've also got a sequence, which is essentially your timeline where you would drag all your video clips and your audio clips in and create your movie, your video. And so what I would do is, the first thing that I would do is I would create folders in Premiere Pro, and they're called bins. So I would just, it's super easy to actually create a bin. What you would do is just click new bin, and you can title it, you know, whatever name you want it to be. I'm just going to delete this because we already have bins created. So what the bins that I create, or the folders that I create, are one for my talking head shot. So this is like your A-roll, and then I also have a folder for my B-roll. So this is anywhere from food to, you know, all the shots of the location. And I also have a folder for for my music. So this is where I save all my music tracks. This is all where I save all my sound effects. And so what I would do afterwards is, so for example, this is some of my talking head shots, and I would just, I would literally just drag this stuff into here. And then once I've dragged all my clips into my bins, I don't know if you can see, there is two options that you can view your clips. There is the icon view, which is where we're at right now, and there's also the list view. So in your list view, you can actually see a little bit more information about the clips that you've just dragged in. So for example, I can see, you know, the frame rate. And I think with food videos, I typically film them at a higher frame rate so that I can slow it down in the edit, because I find that when you slow down food, it always looks a little bit better. So what I would do is, because I typically film in either 50 frames per second or 100 frames, I would label them as such. So everything here is 50. And what I would do is I would label them a certain color. Let's go with this. So I label all of that, all of the 50 frames, this nice green color. And then I would do the same with these clips. So toggle to list view. For all the 50 frames, I would label it Caribbean. And then for the 100 frames, I'm going to label it Mango. So what this means is, once you drag this clip onto your timeline, you know straight away whether it's, you know, 50 or 100. And what this means is, you know, you can slow it down to the appropriate speed to get the slow-mo that you want. So for example, if you toggle it back to the icon view, once you drag it, you just know straight away, okay, this is 100 frames per second. I can slow it down to 25%. And then I also have a folder for music. For me, I always find my music before I even start editing, because I find that getting the right mood for your video is so important, because your music kind of sets the mood. So I always have, you know, music in my bin before I even start editing. And sometimes music takes me so long to find, but if you find the right music, I think it's worth it. So that's pretty much how I organize my footage. It sounds pretty simple, but it's what works for me. So yeah, that's typically what I do. Where do you find a library? Do you use paid music? I subscribe to a music subscription service. I use Epidemic Sound. So now that we're done with organizing clips, I'm going to jump into creating an intro. So we hear the thumbnail and the title being super important for a YouTube video, but in my view, the first 10 to 15 seconds of your video is equally important. So when someone clicks into your video and it doesn't relate to your title or your thumbnail, people are going to click away, which is why your prep is so important, because it means you can go into filming the video already with a potential title in mind, and you know exactly what kind of clips you need to go into the first 10 to 15 seconds of your video. So my intros are usually a montage. And so for this video was a video about late night eats in Sydney. And I wanted the music to have a more kind of jazzy vibe to it. And this was what I went with. Let me just give you. Okay. So that was music that I thought suited the theme of the video. And so because I already knew what my title was going to be, so late night eats in Sydney, I already had a selection of clips that I wanted to use for this intro montage. So yeah, when I think of late night eats, I think of drinks, I think of something that shows nighttime, and I think of like small bites to go with your drinks. So this was the intro montage that I ended up with. So that became the sort of the first few seconds of my video. And while I'm showing you the intro, I also want to show you a few of my go-to audio and video transitions that's readily available in Premiere Pro, and something that I use quite frequently in my intros, and also to transition between different segments of a video clip. So what I typically do when I start the video is I want it to gradually go from it being completely dark to the video showing up on screen. And so we have these video transition options. And what I typically use is I use dip to black a lot, actually. So what this means is it just gradually comes onto the screen. And then when I transition between the end of the montage clip to me talking to the camera, let me just show you. Hello, hello, hello. So when I transition between these two clips, I would also use dip to black as well. And what I can do is I can drag it out a little bit more so that it extends the transition a little bit. Hello, 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 I'm Janice. And I don't know if you notice the sudden drop in audio. So whenever I'm playing an audio clip just for a montage, the audio gain that I set it to is typically -5. And then if I am looking to talk over it as well, what the gain that I set it to is typically -25 to -30. And so right now, let me just show you, there's like a very obvious drop in the volume of the music track. Hello, hello, hello. So what you can do to avoid that, to make it a little bit more smooth, is you can use audio transitions. So there are a few options. I typically use constant power or exponential fade. So constant power just means that transition, it's just gradually decreasing in audio. So. Hello, 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 I'm Janice. It just makes the transition a little bit more smoother. And you can do the same for my voice track as well, just to make it, this is exponential fade. And what I use is it just sort of gradually increases in volume. Hello, 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 I'm Janice, and I hope Yeah, so this is what I use a lot to transition between segments of a video clip, and it just makes it really easy to do so. And so yeah, that's how I move from my montage clip, my intro montage clip, to the second part of the video, which is I guess your video outline and your video structure, the main storyline of what you're trying to show to your audience, or what your main video is going to be about. So, which brings me to our third part, laying down a rough storyline and also, you know, layering clips on top of each other as well. So now that this is done, I want to talk about, you know, the actual storyline. And what I typically do is I typically drag all of my talking head clips onto a timeline, and then I create a story from these clips. I do a rough cut of the clips, so I cut out anything that's unnecessary, you know, any silences, any ums, any ahs. And what I do afterwards is I layer over my talking head clips with my B-roll shots. This is, again, you know, it goes back to why it's so important to have a list of everything that you need to film, and to have a variety of clips, because it just makes your video a lot more interesting. And it's also a good way to hide errors in your talking head shots. So for example, for this video, I knew that the premise was late night eats. So during my video planning, I added to my shot list that I needed to capture some Sydney at night shots, so that I could lay this on when I was first introducing to the audience the premise of this video. So here is what I mean. If I were to just talk to the camera without any shots at all, this is what the video would look like.
Hello, I'm Janice, and I hope you're all doing well. We are currently in Darling Square here in Haymarket, and we are filming an episode of something that I'm starting. I don't know if we'll continue. If you like it, we will. It is Late Night Eats here in Sydney, Australia. Now, I have a few places in mind, and in today's video,
so bearing in mind the premise of the video and my video idea and my shot list, which was I needed to be, you know, food, I needed to be some late night Sydney shots. This is what I added on top of it.
Doing well. We are currently in Darling Square here in Haymarket, and we are filming an episode of something that I'm starting. I don't know if we'll continue. If you like it, we will. It is Late Night Eats here in Sydney, Australia. Now, I have a few places in mind, and in today's video, we are heading to a restaurant called Nakano Darling.
So that's what I mean. It just gives a video a little bit more story, and it just makes it a little bit more interesting. Do I recommend writing a script for your videos? I don't. I mean, for me, I never write a script. I have a brief structure of what I want to cover and where I want to go. But in terms of for example, me sort of tasting food, I rarely write a script for that. I sort of remember what I need to mention. But with other videos, depending on what you're looking to film, maybe a script might help. But for me, scripting a video, it kind of narrows my focus, and I'm so concerned about, you know, making sure I stick to the script that I forget to talk about other things. So short answer, no, I don't write a script for my videos, but depending on your type of videos, maybe it could help. So I also want to show you how I layer clips to hide mistakes. So there are some times where I'm talking in a restaurant and sometimes there's a really loud noise, or I am, you know, chewing food for too long and I want to cut it out, or I say ums and ahs too much, and then it's just too long. So here is what I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see here, but they're essentially, this is like one sentence and there are 4 different clips cut together. I'm talking about dumplings here, but let me show you.
Raw octopus that we've
No, I'm talking about raw octopus. Let me start again.
raw octopus that we've also got. So it's a very small bowl, has some wasabi. That's what my sister said.
So if I don't have any clips to layer on top of it, it just looks very distracting. And so that's why having enough clips is so important, because you can use it to layer it to hide mistakes, essentially, which is what I do a lot.
Raw octopus that we've also got. So it's a very small bowl, has some wasabi. That's what my sister said.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. And I think once you've got sort of these simple sort of tricks down pat, you can repeat it for different sections for your video. You can tie it together with different transitions, and then you can sort of add everything together like a puzzle, and it becomes your video clip, and it becomes your movie, essentially. And that's pretty much everything that I really wanted to show you in the demo. If you have any questions, let me go to some of the questions part. Okay, so Jess has asked, do I use a gimbal? No, I don't. But I try to, there's this trick where you have a camera, and then you can, you know, the camera strap, and like you pull it against your neck, and then it makes it less like shaky. I don't have a gimbal, only because I'm filming alone and I already carry so much, and my backpack is so heavy. That's why, yeah, the strap trick. That's why I don't have a gimbal. Otherwise, I'd love to, but it's just so heavy. What sort of things do you ask when you are reaching out to businesses? So usually what I say to them is I introduce myself. I tell them that I have a YouTube channel on food, and I like to recommend places to eat for my audience. I tell them essentially the premise of my video as well. So if I'm filming I don't know if you've seen my videos on my channel, but I sometimes do food tours. So I do, like, Taiwanese food tour. I tell them that this is the premise of the video, and this is one of the establishments that I really want to feature. I let them know that, and I also let them know that I will be paying for all my food and all my drinks expenses. So I'm literally there because I really want to film content. I really want to showcase their business, and if they're open to it, to let me know. And I also ask if I can film some behind the scenes shots as well, so they're like cooking and whatnot. Hayden, could you teach us how to crop in the video and crop out, similar to zoom in and zoom out? Let me just still have my Premiere Pro open. Do you mean something just like sort of zooming into the video, Hayden? So you can scale your video depending on how far in you want to zoom it in. Do you edit the footage ASAP, or do you keep a stock and edit later on? I sort of, the first thing that I do is I save everything. I don't edit the footage ASAP. I should, because I think doing it ASAP helps you remember what you have filmed. I do find that when I do edit everything that I filmed as soon as I get home, it's just easier to cut that rough storyline. And I'm trying to get into the habit of at least having a rough structure edited as soon as I come home, because otherwise you forget what you filmed. So yeah, I do want to get into that habit of editing ASAP. How much B-roll is enough B-roll? That's a good question. I mean, that's why I have that shot list, right? If not, I keep trying to get as many shots as possible, and then I just have so much that I'm working with. But if I keep the shot list, if I keep to the shot list and I only get, you know, exactly what I need, I spend so much less time in editing, sifting through all these clips that I have. How long does it take for me to finish, to edit a video? Oh, yeah, to edit a video from start to finish. So a 15 to 18-minute video takes me anywhere from 8 to 20 hours, which sounds insane, I know, but it takes me quite a bit of time, like finding music, creating that storyline, and then there's also everything you need to do afterwards once you export your video. But once I do find that when I do have a plan in place, and when I do, sorry, 8 to 20, I find that when I do have like a plan in place and I know exactly what I'm shooting, then it's a lot quicker. But if I don't have a plan and I just shoot whatever, then the editing process takes so much longer. Do you introduce any artificial light during your video capture? I don't. I just work with ambient light only, which sometimes is very, very dark. But the only reason I don't is because I'm already carrying so much stuff. And when I'm sitting alone at a restaurant table eating by myself, I already have a camera in front of me. If I bring another light, it just, yeah. So which is why I don't. I would love to and have the lighting better, but maybe further down the track. So do I add captions to all my videos? I don't actually add captions. I used to manually type them in, but I don't actually do that, only because it takes quite a bit of time. Any tips on getting over the awkwardness of filming outside? I think if you are sort of if you try to just focus on what you're doing, because even now when I do go out and film outside, I can see out of the corner of my eye, people just looking at me like, what is she doing? So I think it's just trying to block it out and just focusing on what you're doing. Like ultimately, you know, for me, what I think is, you know, this is my job. I'm doing my job. I love what I do. And I think that's sort of how I get over it. And it's just doing it a lot. Once you do it a lot, then it gets a little bit less awkward. Do I go off tangent a lot, or how do you find your focus? Is it in terms of like when I'm shooting my videos or when I'm talking to the camera? I think having like a rough structure helps. So I know what I want to talk about, and that's sort of down to the planning. Is that what you mean? Is it when I'm talking to the camera and then sort of randomly talking about other things? I think having like a plan and a structure, that helps. Yeah. How are your videos found on YouTube? Do you use specific keywords for a video? It's mostly down to like looking at what people are typically searching and what I want to film and whether there is an interest. And so I think using specific keywords, I don't use like specific keywords for every video. It's really dependent on the video that I'm looking to film. So for example, for Sydney at night, I use things like Sydney food. I use things like late night eats. as like keywords. And it was a Japanese place as well, so I used some keywords related to that as well. Jimmy, you're so welcome. Thank you so much all for joining. I really appreciate it. How did I teach myself? I watched a lot of YouTube videos on how people edit using Premiere Pro, and there's a lot of really helpful videos on YouTube. I was also a part of the creator camp at Adobe as well, which was really helpful. But it's mostly watching YouTube videos of how people edit. Hi Debbie, thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah, you can apply to be a part of Creator Camp. It was super helpful for me, and it was great to be a part of like a community of people that are also creators. I'm glad to hear. Tanya. Maybe you can try again. Do I shoot? Yeah, I do shoot impromptu sometimes. Like when it's just a vlog. I did shoot a lot more impromptu, like before I started my YouTube channel. This was just a vlog, my family holidays and whatnot. But if I'm just doing like a vlog, then definitely it's more impromptu. It's less topic specific. I don't do that as much now. I do want to do that more, so we'll see. Oh, I have a question in the chat pod from Andrew. How do you handle objections from owners if they don't want you filming because it will bother other customers? Then I just don't film. If they don't want me to film, then I just stop. So that's why I have these alternatives to make sure that I have other places that I can visit. How do you prevent any sort of perfectionism to slow you down from editing, to slow you down from finishing editing and completing something in general? I actually really struggled with that. I think that there's this saying, isn't it? Done is better than perfect. And with every single one of my YouTube videos, before I press upload, I always feel like it's not good enough. But if I spend so much time trying to, make sure I perfect the sound or the color or color correct, all the clips to the right color, to the way that it looks, I would never get any video up, which is why I have broadcasted my video schedule. I tell everybody that I am uploading once a week, which kind of forces me to make sure that I upload regardless of, whether the video is up to what I think is perfect. In other words, what keeps you from pulling the trigger and clicking send? I want to know. Oh, I don't know what skip. I'm not sure what this question relates to. I'm sorry. In other words, what things keep you from pulling the trigger and clicking send? I want to know this too. If you had to go back and give novice you advice, what advice would that be? I wish I started sooner. I think the best time is now. I waited so long to start, to be honest. I think for whatever reason, I just felt like, I wasn't really good enough. But you have to be bad in order to be better. And so that's what I would say to myself. Honestly, just start, because otherwise you're never going to improve, is what I think. hi, I just started to do video editing. Any tips for a beginner? Just keep, I think, here's what I think. I think you should set a schedule. Say, you know, you want to edit one video a week and you keep sticking to that. And it doesn't matter whether that edit turns out to be great or it turns out to be not so great. I think you just need to get into the habit of doing it often. I think with video editing, it's just something that you need to continue to do. And with practice, you just get better. In your videos, you go with your siblings sometimes, but you're the one on camera. Does the support kind of also make it easier to talk to camera? Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's always nice to have people to film with. But for me, like I'm so used to filming alone and traveling alone that I don't really mind. But it's always nice. It's always nice to have them tag along. But the thing is, when they are with me, they always get so hungry. And I'm like, can I just take an extra 10 seconds to get my shots? And they're like, I'm so hungry. So that's the only downside to that. I think we have a few more minutes left. How do you export your final videos? So, okay. I go to File. And then I press Export. I'm not sure. File. Okay, it's not showing up for me right now, but essentially I click File, I click Export, and you can choose the settings that you would need for your export. How do you, sorry, we have more questions in the chat pod. Hi, Janice, how do you decide on your theme of food and travel? The at the end. I decided based on what I want to film and what like based on my research as well. So that's kind of what I typically do. Angel has a question as well. Follow-up question. Do you plan on working with a film production company in the future? I definitely wouldn't be opposed to it. We'll see. I really enjoy what I do right now. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Oh yes, there is also a post-event survey that that will be sent to you. So if you can fill it out, it will be really helpful for how we organize future events as well. And if there's a question that I didn't answer, feel free to message me on Instagram, and I will try and answer those questions as well. Just let me know you came to the Adobe event, and you have some follow-up questions from there. So because I know that there are some questions that I didn't answer, so just message me as well if you have burning questions that weren't answered here. So yeah, thank you so much all for joining. I really appreciate it. I think we're nearly there with time. So regardless of which time zone, I know there are some crazy time zones joining from, you know, really late at night and really early in the morning. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'll see you very soon in my next video.